You're listening to State of the Arts. We cover the art scene in St. Augustine, the nation's oldest city. From the people and organizations that create the art to the venues that display it, we cover it all, from artist to venue and everything in between. You're listening to State of the Arts. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for listening. I'm John Bashara. This is State of the Arts. This episode's spotlight shines on St. Augustine's Romanza Festival of Music and the Arts, taking place live May 1st through the 15th. Up first, co-founder and composer Albert Silas. We'll take up the conversation with me asking Albert, can you give me 5 words that would describe art to you?
Music, dance, theater, art, literary.
Fair enough.
Those are the arts. That comes from my promotional background from promoting Romanza for 10 years. Those are the key points that we want people to hear when we talk about the Romanza Festival, because it's not just an arts festival. It's not just a bunch of paintings with hot dogs on the side. It's all the arts. So we always spell it out: music, dance, theater, art, literary, cuisine, heritage. We spell those things out, and I can rattle those off, and people go, oh, it's got all that stuff in it. Oh, sometimes we say concerts or plays or exhibits, and it's a different way of saying the same thing. But that's just getting the point across. But what is art? Art is human expression. Is that good, bad, or indifferent? Theoretically, the highest form of human expression. We can apply art to a grocery shelf, or to an interstellar spacecraft, or to a painting in a gallery. Art is high human expression.
The bloom on the rose.
You can put it that way. That's a beautiful way.
Albert, will you tell me about the song you composed that was featured in the Montreal Film Festival?
Rhapsody just fit it because it sounds passionate, and it doesn't sound like a poem. It's actually, it has a title, Christabel. Christabel was a epic poem written by Samuel Taylor. Christabel, Christabel. Christabel. It's a woman's name. It was a 19th century epic poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge that is debatable as to whether it's about vampires or lesbians. In 1798, both were looked down on, and both were controversial, and both were very interesting when you've had a few drinks. Yeah. So he wrote this epic poem, and it was chilling. And I learned about it in high school, and it's like, I've always thought, I should write a poem. And being Hungarian, I kind of attracted to vampires. So I said, I'm going to write a piece about this someday. I'm going to write a piece of music about it. And I sat down years later and started writing, heard a piece of music in my head, and I said, let me write that down and play it. And ooh, this is pretty cool. I bet I could apply it to this poem that Coleridge wrote. And then I expanded on that, and I said, well, what can I do to make it sound more like it fits with the poem? But the music started by itself, not with the name. I had this other name in the back of my mind, and the two of them kind of get together as I was developing the piece of music.
So what's the motivation in that?
It goes back to what I was saying before. It's like I had this idea about this classic poem, and I heard this piece of music in my head that I wanted to write down. The two of them went together, and they started feeding off each other, and it's like finally I said, okay, I'm going to do something cool with this, and I'm going to spend a lot of time and do it. And I did it, and I didn't do anything else. Other things I would spend 2 or 3 days doing. Other things, I had a piece of music that I actually wrote in college that I had written down and everything. I never recorded it. So I wrote it down and recorded it and added an extra 2-3 minutes of music to it. That took me about a day because it's been in my brain forever. But generally speaking, if I don't obsess, I don't finish. I have a lot of unfinished work. It's
So
not
what
that
does
like,
obsess mean then?
make sure you get it done. and do it the right way. Do it good. Do it the right way. And I've written pieces that I've got 3/4 of the way through and then got distracted by something else, typically Romanza, and never came back to. And I've got several 3/4 or 2/3 or 1/2 written pieces of music that are just sitting out there, and it's like, yeah, I'll get back to that someday, and I never do, because I know if I'm going to do it, I got to drop everything else, including Romanza, for a week or longer, or maybe a few days, but it's just not happening. You've got to dedicate yourself to make your own sense of quality come true. And if you don't do that, then you're not being authentic to yourself. You may not be worth a damn to somebody else's eyes, but if you don't do it for yourself, it's not authentic to you. You're wasting your time. You're creating pictures in the attic that even you don't care about.
You want to say anything else?
Nope.
Albert, thank you. I appreciate it.
That helps.
Now, Kathy Vanderberg, board member and chair of Romanza Festival. We'll join the conversation with Kathy explaining how Romanza was formed.
The impetus was the 450th anniversary of St. Augustine, and they wanted to put on sort of a mini Spoleto festival like they have in Charleston. Now, for the 450th, we could do a little one, a little festival. But out of that impetus for let's have a big community arts event, then Romanza was formed. That became our really goal, to support and promote the arts in St. Augustine in particular and in the First Coast. And then we kind of fell into doing the Celtic Festival, very much related, because the Celtic Festival then became the way we got to be known with the St. Patrick's Day Parade and the Celtic Festival. And then the Celtic became so popular, and so many bands from around the world wanted to come, and Canada and all other parts of the United States. And we then began to realize some profit from the Celtic. And the profit from the Celtic then went to support Romanza Festivale of the Arts. Then we had a little bit of capital, not huge, but we had enough capital so that we could really begin to pay people a decent stipend. We could promote new artists and artists that perhaps maybe somebody doesn't draw a big crowd for what they do. And yet we could then pay them a stipend and give them a place to perform. And one of the things that we have sort of zeroed in on is finding venues for people.
You talked about being in music earlier. Do you have an artistic background?
I was a music educator all my life, and I was a major in pipe organ in college, and that's really my love. And so I've done a lot of conducting, a lot of vocal conducting and choral conducting, and I'm still playing the organ at St. Cyprian's Church, so, never say die, I'll just die on the organ bench.
You play almost everywhere.
Oh, well, I love to accompany groups and soloists. I don't know, there's something about feeling at one with a performer, to kind of anticipate where they're going and what they're doing. I just find that a challenge. So I accompany the North Florida Women's Chorale, and I accompany other groups, play from weddings and stuff like that. One of these days, I guess I'll have to say stop, but right now it keeps me going. And you know what was great during the pandemic? I go by myself down to the church, and I could just sit there and play for a couple of hours. It got me out of the house. I was having such a good time, and I wasn't with anybody, It was just, I felt like I was so lucky to be able to do that.
What is art?
What is art? I think people have been trying to define art for centuries and have never been successful, but I do think it reflects who we are as human beings. I think it's a really human activity. It is when you feel that you have something to share as a person, and you share it And then the person who responds to it may not respond in the way that you thought they would, but there is usually a response. And so it really says who we are. And we use different forms and different media to talk about our art or to tell who we are. But we usually like to have an audience and someone to look at it. And I think that's the great thing about art, is that the creator may have intended one thing, but the recipient receives another thing. And it's such an exciting exchange because you don't have any idea what's going to happen once you throw it out into the world.
Can you give me 5 words that would describe art the way you see it?
Probably not. Let me five words. I think it's expressive, it's creative, it's aesthetic, it is quintessentially human.
Does that mean exclusively?
Exclusively human? I don't know, but I can't answer that. I'm not smart enough. But I do think that for human beings, it is quintessentially sharing who we are as people.
Do you find yourself inundated with Romanza stuff at this point? Yeah?
Absolutely. But I get hung up on the business end of it too,
Right.
If that all goes with it. And the first thing I really have to do is to get the venues in. And around St. Augustine, that's very difficult. We've just been really fortunate. There are places that have stepped up, but it isn't easy. And St. Cyprian's is doing a couple of outdoor concerts this year, which is nice. One of them is going to be Amber Hall is going to bring her drums that can be sterilized now, so everybody will feel okay. She has a whole set of drums, and you can just sit there for 45 minutes and bang on a drum. And I can't think of anything we all need more this year than 45 minutes.
Kathy and I will be first in line.
A little outlet there, huh?
Banging away.
How do you put something like that together?
One of the things that I have gathered through the years of doing this is quite a list of contacts, which has proved invaluable because someone will suggest someone else and that sort of thing. The chamber music series is something I really like because I try to broaden the scope of what people think of as chamber music. But it's an hour from 12 to 1. You can go to lunch afterwards. You can, it's free. It's fabulous. And so I try to get a real variety of things in there. For instance, the poets, Ancient City Poets, are doing Monday noon, the 10th. And
Where?
At Ancient City Baptist Church. And they're going to put on a program of stories and poems about St. Augustine. And then 3 of their poets are going to speak, and Sam Passetti is going to provide music. And of course, Sam is a Gamble Rogers student and aficionado, and he expresses the quintessential St. Augustine through his songs and stories. So combining him with the poets is really a nice St. Augustine noon. Then on Wednesday, we're doing a Florida premiere of a new John Rutter work for treble voices and violin, and it's really a harp, but I'm playing the harp part on the piano. But it's a really unbelievable work. It is absolutely beautiful. It's about 12 minutes long. Karen Umbarger is going to play the violin part. And then after that, we have a few more songs by the women who are going to be singing that. The last half of the program is clarinet and piano, doing some really delightful things.
And all of these are local performers, is that correct?
And those are all, everybody's local. There's only one group that is the First Coast, but not local to St. Augustine, and that's Astralis. They're going to be there on Friday. And they're doing, it's harp, flute, and cello.
Cool.
So it's just really I try to get a good variety. Bartram Trail is going to have their choral music group come and sing. Fabulous.
So how many different performances are going to fill those different venues?
35.
Now, just to clarify, this is a smaller year because of the pandemic and our budget was cut. She normally puts together about 75 to 80 events for a festival. Hopefully next year we're back to 75 to 80.
Some of the groups that are on this year were supposed to be on last year, and I really felt like I wanted them to have that chance to be live. And of course, everything we're doing according to the COVID protocols of the venue in which we are performing. I think it will work out all right. Everybody has to wear a mask. That's a given. People are just so sick of streaming. They want to be live.
People want to see live performances.
Yep. People want to see people.
The first thing I try to do is to book the main performing groups, the large performing groups in town, like First Coast Opera, a classic theater, St. Augustine Community Chorus, St. Augustine Orchestra. This year we do not have and the community band. Classic Theater this year is joining with First Coast Opera in their production, but usually we have a dramatic production from a classic theater as well. But this year, of course, the orchestra and the band have not been able to rehearse together, so they are not participating. The chorus is doing an interesting thing. They rehearsed in sort of like small pods, and they're putting their pods together in a performance at Lewis Auditorium on the 11th of May.
Live?
Live. The other thing that we have is this big dance show, and we've had this now for 6 years. And we just ask all of the dance companies and teachers in the area to come and present a number. It's called Kaleidoscope of Dance, and that's going to be on the 10th, and that's in Lewis. And it's free. I mean, all of these things are free except the ones that are presented by outside groups, like the opera is selling tickets. The chorus is selling tickets.
Where would I find this information?
Romanza Festival Facebook page, as well as www.romanzafestival.com. ROMANZA. And festival has an E at the end.
Okay.
It's Festival E.
Festival.
Yeah, right. Festival.
It's a fancy festival.
I love the whole lineup this year, but there were 3 things I put in Gamache Coger that we have not really had before. One is a performance by Flow Arts Music Department. Flow Arts in Palatka has this wonderful music department, and they really specialize in Broadway stylings, and they teach their kids how to act and sing and do Broadway. And so they're coming and they're calling their show Broadway Bound, and it's going to be in Gamache Coger on the 6th at 7:30. On the 7th, on Friday, we have the River City Rhythm Kings coming, and that's a jazz group. These guys are fantastic. They have played for Romanza maybe 4 or 5 years ago. These guys they're great jazz people who taught at UNF, and some are still teaching there. And then you had Eric Carter and company. He is absolutely fabulous and has done a couple of concerts here in St. Augustine. And then I have 2 other headliners. One is Mama Blue, and she's going to play in Lewis this time. And it's going to be on Mother's Day, a special concert for moms on Sunday evening, Mother's Day. Closing one is Apia Uwanda, and she's a soul singer, and she's going to be in Trinity Parish Hall. I really want to say to everybody, look, come and plan your trip to St. Augustine during festival. You won't believe the fabulous things that are going on. I mean, the plein air art show goes on, and that's part of us. So there are just a lot of things. Oh, wine tasting, that's part of us too.
Thank you so much, Gary. I really appreciate it.
No, just hope to see everybody there.
You got it. Excellent. You've been listening to the classic sounds of Chris and Carrie. otherwise known as
Deux saisons, which is Deux saisons.
It's French.
It means 2 seasons.
How long have you been performing?
Since 2017.
Summer of 2017.
And so the French name kind of comes because the first music we worked on was by Gabriel Fauré, who is French.
And we're doing that set at the Romanza Festival.
And we're performing that set at the Romanza Festival.
Is this your guys' first appearance at Romanza?
It's actually our second, but last year, due to the pandemic, we had so we did it online. It was an online performance
From our home.
from our home. Yes, right.
Next to our kitchen.
It's going to be nice to be in person, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
To get out there and be with people again.
Yeah, absolutely. And the venue is the church there is really beautiful, acoustic wise. Yes, right.
Where are you guys going to be playing?
Ancient City Baptist.
Ancient City Baptist. Do you know what the dates are?
May 11th.
Yeah, at noon.
Yeah.
May 11th at noon at Ancient City Baptist. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
How long will your performance be? Like an hour?
About an hour. We have an hour's worth of music. I'll do some solo guitar things as well.
Right.
And yeah, it'll be probably roughly an hour of music.
How did you find out about Romanza?
Yeah, Carrie actually found Romanza. Is that correct?
Well, so I'm a singer, and I joined Kathy Vandenberg's chamber choir, and so I met her through that. We met another gentleman named Mike Sanfilippo, who is the choir director at another church, and he's the one that put us in contact with Kathy. And so then Kathy, she knew we were due. I think she may have seen us. And she asked if we wanted to be on Romanza, and I said, sure. That sounds great. And, it's a cool festival.
Right.
It's really awesome that a town like St. Augustine has that at their fingertips.
Does classic refer to a time, an era in which the music came about, or does it refer to the style of the music itself?
Yeah. It's really more of the. It's almost the way that it's studied. It's more of the way that the pieces come about and the way they're studied by the performers. So like it comes about as in a composer has an idea or a sound in their head, and they create that on paper or some other medium, and then an interpreter interprets what the composer has done. And so that is kind of more, when we talk about classical music, it's actually more about that kind of relationship and that sort of creative process. There's plenty of contemporary, classical music that's being made today, which much of the stuff is the things that we play.
The modern definition of what is quote-unquote classical music, a lot of it leans on how much it's rooted in tradition, how much of it is based on the way that music was written years ago, either by mimicking it, composing exactly how Mozart composed, or by purposefully composing it differently. Like maybe your pieces, the conductor is supposed to wave their hands in a specific way, and that's all the music says. It says conductor raises their hand and the orchestra responds. And that's considered classical music because it's in response to the tradition of the classical style. It's kind of, it's a blanket term.
It's a lot more complicated than I thought it was.
But when you're talking about Mauro Giuliani being a classical composer, so in music history there are eras. They're about 100 years long each. And one of them is the classical era. So that's where Mozart was, and that's where Mauro Giuliani was during the 1800s time period.
That's that time frame you were referring to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right.
So there is classical music, but then there's also the classical music era.
That was great, guys.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Yes,
Both.
yeah, John.
Very
Yeah,
much appreciate it.
absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Bodor with the Ancient City Poets.
My name is Robert Waldner, also a member of the Ancient City Poets.
And I'm Sam Passetti, local musician and purveyor of rare antiquities.
So how did you guys come to be affiliated with the Romanza Festival?
Lean said to me that she wanted to spotlight and showcase the ancient city poets by pairing us with a singer-songwriter.
And she let you decide who the singer-songwriter would be?
No. She said Sam was going to be the number one choice. And when I heard that, I knew Robert Waldner had to be one of the poets because Robert and Sam were already friends. I'll tee everything up and I'll introduce the concept with a poem that has a St. Augustine reference to it.
Sam, what are you going to do?
I have no idea. I mean, I just kind of arrive and try to be spontaneous and appropriate. Well, and try to ride the line between the sacred and the profane as much as possible.
Are you rehearsing this piece at all?
No.
You just come in and ad-lib it?
Kind of, yeah. I play off of these guys, get a sense of the theme and try to do something that supports that.
What are you reacting to when you do that?
The feeling of the material, where's it coming from emotionally, the space, and trying to support it, create
What indicates that to you?
The feeling. Whatever the poetry may elicit in the moment.
What Sam's referring to is Robert will share his words and Sam will add a little music to it as it's being performed. So we have that creative spontaneity, and that's when Sam was saying the feeling, the vibe. But it'll be a journey.
You're a storyteller also, is that correct?
That's a bit of a stretch. I was mentored by a local man named James Rogers, who most people knew as Gamble. And Gamble was a very famous folk singer, troubadour, raconteur, and was probably one of the best raconteurs in the U.S. next to Garrison Keillor, or in that realm. So I met him when I was in high school, and he kind of took me under his wing for a while. So I spent a lot of time listening to how he would create these themes and motifs and moods and these fictional characters and deliver it in just spectacular fashion. It's like listening to Flannery O'Connor or William Faulkner on stage with a guitar.
Have you got your poem?
I did.
Are you ready?
Is this the one we did before?
No, this is
something different.
This is a little bit different.
All right.
So,
Whenever you're ready.
all right, ready? It's called Stillness in the Age of Progress. The world grows again. There has never been a person who never uttered, "I wish time would stand still." Surely it slows now. As humans hibernate, perhaps the species at our mercy will flourish again, and forests will rise from the soil we have churned. May the oily fingerprints of humankind lift from the once polished perfection of prehistory to once again reveal the epitome of life on Mother Earth. For she is more than just a rock floating in galactic vastness. She is living, breathing, and abundantly aware. Our matriarch remembers vividly the days before humankind. She has not forgotten life before her youngest children sprung from her womb, with eyes blinded by the light of promise. She learns to live again for the ones who never stopped loving her.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. That was lovely.
That was very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next up, First Coast Opera and a Classic Theater collaborate to bring you a world premiere of Penelope Ann's Revenge, featuring...
I'm Catherine Ortega-Spitzer, and I'm singing the role of Penelope Ann.
Nelson Shealy, I wrote and I'm directing this.
Curtis Tucker, I was the composer for Penelope Ann's Revenge, playing the role of Mr. Box. Sarah Norden. I am playing the role of Lydia Bouncer.
And I'm Tyler Putnam. I am playing Mr. Cox.
How do these collaborations work? In reality, how it works is we have a brief conversation about an idea. Nelson seemingly overnight writes an entire libretto, and 5 to 7 years later, I finally set it to music. That's pretty much the routine for how that's worked. So the words have to come first, otherwise you don't know what kind of music to write.
Yeah, we figured that out early on because he got a grant for us to write this thing. We said, that's great. And then we kind of stared blankly at each other and went, now what? You want me to write some words? You want to write a tune? How is this going to work? And so it just kind of evolved into, I would write the book and the lyrics and then send them to him. And then if they didn't work, then he would tell me,
Yeah, I certainly would.
Well,
Sometimes
what does it mean that it doesn't work?
Well, just occasionally, as I'm working something out musically, I might say to him, "I'm having a hard time setting this. Can we say this in fewer words, or can you add a couple more lines here, or can relatively minor things because of any variety of things, musical form, certain rhyme schemes. Nelson uses a lot of rhyme in what he writes for these." And so I'm trying to set those, and occasionally either I want to do something musically or the situation of it kind of dictates that you need a little more space or a little less space. And so sometimes you have to adjust the text. I don't think we've ever had anything where I've said, this is horrible, send me something new. Yeah. Or I need a whole, I think there has been once or twice where I said, it'd really be great to have an aria here. But then I tell him that, and 3 hours later, he sends it to me, and 2 years later, I set it to music.
That happened in this piece because, for whatever reason, there's an aria that he has that the thing was done. And I said there needs to be something here, and I asked him. I said, "What about if I write an aria for the hat guy?" And he said, "Yeah, that sounds all right."
Yeah, the first version of this, there were no arias in this piece, and then I think Nelson decided, well, maybe the Hatter Mr. Cox ought to have a song about being a Hatter, and then I think I'm the one at some point that said, it'd be nice if Penelope Ann could sing, something here, and so
she's here.
Right. Right. I mean, she was in it, she was singing, but it'd be nice maybe if we had an actual aria, an actual piece. I think it works well. So there's audition processes, in which even during the pandemic we did a little Zoom session, Kathy and I, where we read the dialogue, and and nowadays everybody's got recordings and videos that they send, and I do a lot more casting from those things than I ever used to. I used to insist that I had to occupy the same airspace with somebody before I'd hire them. And then we got to 2020, and you didn't want to be in the same airspace.
The whole industry made that change overnight.
Tell me about the collaboration between the performer.
Yeah.
Why did you come to do this play?
First of all, when I read it, I just sat around laughing the whole time, which made me want to do it. I was like, we were traveling somewhere, and I was just reading it on my phone and laughing out loud because it's great.
Well, that's good news.
But also, I've done a couple of world premieres, and I really enjoy working with people who wrote it, because then we don't argue about what the composer intended. We just have him here and ask him.
The other thing I want to say is I'm Sarah's husband. We're a team here. And it is really great to do a work that's funny, a new work that's funny and has tunes. A lot of new work in opera is kind of esoteric and
noisy.
Yeah, that's a word. Yeah. I feel like a lot of new compositions are really hard to listen to and hard to follow because they don't sound romantic, they don't have a tune, and it could be because composers are being rewarded for being very heady and brainy, and the more out there it is, the better. But in this case, because what Kurt and Nelson have done here is put a sequel to a comic opera with another comic opera that, were you guys trying to match the style? It seems very, very,
it
similar.
Seems similar.
Or it's like Cox and Box 2.0 or something.
Right.
If it were it's still set in the 19th century, but something about it feels kind of contemporary. Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be a part of this. Looking forward to discovering lots of new jokes and comedy with people finally in person. That's the biggest joy for me in all of this. I've been singing in a closet for the past year, making recordings and participating in Zoom concerts. And while I've been grateful to have even that, just this chance, I almost get emotional. The past few days thinking about the first time to be able to perform with colleagues in person and collaborate in person with a pianist and everything. It's just
And an
very
audience, for
exciting.
God's
Yes.
So,
that's what I'm really looking forward to and really grateful for.
I just love working on new works that I'm excited about, because so often, as what we sometimes call ourselves mercenaries, because we're just paid to do what we're paid to do, and if you might not necessarily like the content of what you're singing. And this is one of the times that I've looked at a score and I believe in this, it's going to be good.
Oh, it's just great to be part of a good old-fashioned door-slamming combination.
Cox and Box and Penelope Ann's Revenge, performed by First Coast Opera and a Classic Theater during the Romanza Festival at the Lincolnville Museum and Cultural Center on May 4th through May 9th. Tickets are available at classictheater.org. I'm not sure whether they're org or com.
That's going to make it finally. That wraps this episode, folks. And it's .org. We'd like to thank everyone who shared their thoughts with us today, and we'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Let us know at risingtideproductions158.com or on our Facebook page, Rising Tide Productions. A special thanks to Sonic Pistolero for the music, Corey Michael Smithson for still photography, Diffusion Productions for their drone footage, producer and editor Heather Eggleston, and the Beach Art Studio for the use of its lovely space. I'm John, and we appreciate you listening.